Step into the captivating world of the Behind the Curtain podcast, where your dynamic hosts, John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, bring together a wealth of 60 years of combined experience in healthcare and manufacturing. Join us every week as we delve into intriguing topics, weaving unscripted conversations that promise to take you on an unpredictable and enlightening journey. Gain valuable insights for your continuous improvement adventure as we navigate uncharted territories with enthusiasm and expertise. Welcome to a podcast that goes beyond the ordinary, unraveling the mysteries behind the curtain of knowledge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. John, it's always a pleasure to see you. I'm really excited about today. Really enjoyed our conversations around team design and also getting into team development. But now I want to take us down a different path where you could design a team, you could develop a team. I think those are really important. But I think another thing around teams that's critical and often forgot about is the dynamics that happen between the teams. And so today, let's talk about a little bit about team dynamics. So with that, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So last week, we talked about the 4 stages that teams go through, right? The form, storm, norm, perform. And I mentioned at that time how damaging storm can be the longer it goes.
Yep.
And that relates a lot to the fact that you have a diverse group of people who see things in different ways. Plus, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of trying to position each other, for who's the best on the team, all those kinds of internal conflicts. Well, as a trained facilitator, and I do think that every company should have a group of well-trained neutral facilitators. Now, being neutral, that's important because that means you can't facilitate your own team, right? It needs to be someone that's unbiased, someone from outside of that department or, that particular area. Otherwise, the team might not build very much trust with that person if they think they're leading the team down a particular path, for example. So anyway, having a neutral facilitator is first key important step. And again, you don't need one for every meeting, just for teams that are being asked to make a difficult decision or come up with a new way of doing things. That's where a facilitator would be very helpful. And then designing the actual meeting agenda itself is critically important to help minimize the storming in a team. I always talk about the introductory block of the meeting agenda, and I'm very adamant about the importance of that introductory block. Now, what's in that introductory block? First, it's good to have everybody introduce themselves, what they do, what their job title is, and also what their expectations are for this team. Because right off the bat, the facilitator can address any discrepancies between what I think this team's about and what we've been really actually asked to do. Second thing is to have, if you have a team sponsor, and every team should have a sponsor, have the sponsor come in and say a few words about the importance of the team. Because the root cause of most disruptive behaviors on a team is the lack of understanding of the question, why am I here? Right? Why am I here? I got 1,000 emails to work on. I got 50 projects I'm working on. I got lots of other things I could be doing. Or I don't believe that this team's really going to be effective, or they're really going to have an opportunity to really change anything, or I don't really buy into the need to change it all. So why am I here? And if I don't have a good answer to that question, then that gives me permission to, look at my phone and answer emails, not paying attention, or having side conversations with somebody who I've been trying to track down for the last 3 months. And now all of a sudden they're here with me so I can get some other work done. or I'll just be really negative. There's lots of different ways that manifests itself within the team. So I'll stop here and ask you for your thoughts. Have you run into situations where a team didn't really understand why they were there and it resulted in poor team dynamics?
You know, I love where you're going with this, John. If we go back to team design, we talked about there's really different types of teams. There's like functional teams, which are more vertical in the organization, all similar roles. There are horizontal teams who are more like value stream. In healthcare, it would be like the continuum of care of taking care of a patient. And then there's the project or tiger teams who are focusing on solving a strategy or a problem with some tactics. And so depending on how we're saying team here, out of the design, I think all three of those teams go through the storming phase.
Right.
And there's some things that I think you pointed to that I think are really critical. So I'm going to start with the cognition comment that you just made of why am I here? And regardless, if I'm a lean office individual, if I'm a nursing floor with a leader with a lot of nurses, if I'm a value stream of neurology and looking at the whole continuum of care, for me, that shared mental model of understanding the purpose of why I'm here, I think plays a significant role for team dynamics. So I would say that's the first one. The second one is the perspectives of how people view this purpose. I think that's another piece of cognition that's really critical, because if people don't have empathy towards the purpose and why they're going after why they're here, and seeing it from a place of curiosity, so that all these communication barriers, so people don't misinterpret or take offense to people calling their baby ugly, as you pointed out in the last video, I think are critical. So cognition is one area I think that is critical for team dynamics. The second one, I would say, there's a big piece of situational awareness too, to understand you might have been in a similar situation in the past, but it might have not been the exact same context. So understanding the landscape, understanding like that team has brought you here to solve this, just because you have solved it like 8 years ago in a different context or a different setting, not having clarity on the situational awareness plays into team dynamics. Some people come in with fresh perspectives. Some people are stuck in, oh, we've done it this way before, it didn't work. And so I think that plays into team dynamics, because it kind of almost hinders that purpose, because you're bringing in some baggage from the past, but not having the situational awareness to understand that this situational awareness has changed. The context has changed. What didn't work 10 years ago might have not had the technology that we have today.
Right.
What didn't work 10 years ago might have not had the organizational design that we have today. And so I would say that's the second point. And I'll say one more, and then I would love to see what your thoughts are on what I just said, is the behaviors of the team. How are the team behaving with each other? Are they in the moment and actually listening to understand from each other, or are they listening to respond? Is there some aspects of this that allows them to see separate realities? Do they view each other from a authentic and humanistic standpoint? Do they model high performance themselves? And do they have discretionary effort in how they behave towards one another? I think behaviors is such an important part of team dynamics, regardless of the type of design team that you have.
Right. And I totally agree. And that actually takes us to the next part of the agenda, right? Then in that introductory block is, so we have introductions, everybody introduces themselves and what their expectations are. We have the sponsor say a few words. We have the facilitator introduce themselves and explain a little bit about what the facilitator role is. Then I think it's critically important that the team either do some sort of an icebreaker or team building exercise, depending on how long the team is going to be together, right? If it's just a 2-hour 3-hour, 4-hour meeting, maybe just some sort of an icebreaker. And it could be something as simple as asking people what their favorite movie is.
Yeah.
Or, what their favorite restaurant is. You can go a little deeper and ask questions like, if you could have dinner tonight with anyone in the world, who would you have dinner with? But the reason why that's so important is to address exactly what you're talking about, is that if I view the other people sitting around the table as cogs in a machine, then I can treat them with disrespect. But the moment I start seeing them as real people, as people who have real interests, some interests that might be the same as my interests, right? If we share a common movie, like, wow, now all of a sudden you're no longer Mohamed from the finance department who's constantly trying to get me to fill out my timesheet correctly. You're a real person. Wow, you really like that particular movie. And man, that's one of my favorites too. And that also gives us something to talk about during the breaks. And it helps to build those relationships much better. As far as team building exercises are concerned, there's hundreds of team building exercises out there. And again, this is where the facilitator plays an important role. Is there are a lot of team building exercises that are specific to a particular topic or opportunity the team is working on, right? So if if the main focus for the first day is to do a process map, well, there are team building exercises that help teams think in terms of process steps and the order of those steps. So it's important to match the exercise with what the team might need.
Yeah.
But again, doing a team building exercise does a couple things. One, it helps us to relate to each other better because we're working together on something that's simple and silly. We're not just jumping right into the critical problem that we're trying to solve and all the anxiety. We're actually working on something that's not meaningful, but it gives us an opportunity to come together around that. It gives us a shared experience, something we can talk about the rest of the time we're together. Oh, remember that exercise we did? It also helps the facilitator to start identifying maybe some disruptive behaviors in a neutral setting. But it also, I mentioned last week that the best way to get out of storm is to have some sort of a success. So if the team is successful in achieving whatever goal is set in that team building exercise, now all of a sudden they have a success under their belt. Now, it won't guarantee they won't go into storming, but at least it's, well, hey, you may have a lot of anxiety about fixing this problem, but you guys did amazing in that team building exercise. You knocked it out of the park. So why don't we start thinking in terms of we can do this, not what's preventing us from doing this?
Yeah, I think you pointed to a few things that I just want to go back to that I think are really critical. The first one is you're setting up the team to feel safe. So that's psychological empowerment feeds psychological safety. And being able to relate, like I in many situations, even when I do large scale trainings, I would break up the teams in 5s and 6 as part of their breakout, and I would tell them for the next 5 minutes, find something you all have in common.
Right.
And then I'll ask them to, if you had to visit one place in the world, where would it be? Something like that. And so, because, well, first of all, they come to a place where they're all similar in something. And sometimes they'll talk about like 2 or 3 things they're similar with, but instantly the dynamic of the team has changed because now they all have a common ground that they're all working on. And then the where would you like to go opens up additional conversations afterwards, and they feel empowered to be able to be able to voice where they want to be. I think that is really the cornerstone of building trust and respect towards one another. And it doesn't matter if it's a project team, it doesn't matter if it's a value stream team, or it doesn't matter if it's a functional team. I think you're going to have huddles every single day that you could start off with recognition and some fun fact. You're going to have meetings around your projects that are at a cadence every single week or every single other week to move the ball along of what you're doing. So regardless, I think, or you might have teams that are coming together across the value stream to talk about something that went wrong and trying to figure out who did it. But I think in every single one of those, the points that you brought out of creating that agenda, creating that breakdown, I think is crucial. The one thing I just wanted to add to it is I always start any meeting with appreciation and recognition because it sets the tone of respect. I think that's something that you've pointed out in a few podcasts now. It just sets the tone of respect of this meeting is about respecting each other. Right. And or showing that you respect the organization. So you could acknowledge someone that's in the room, you could acknowledge someone that's not in the room. Sometimes I'll ask the people in the room to recognize someone else on someone else's team to just show that, hey, that Mohamed finance guy that was annoying me all this time, I'm starting to mesh with him, but now I'm going to recognize someone on his team, which will take my closeness to that individual even closer because I'm seeing the value of what his team is bringing. So the pride of that person comes into the table, and they feel kind of energized to do more of that. And I think that helps with team dynamics.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I'm so adamant about doing those kinds of things like the icebreaker and the team building exercise that I'll tell you a quick story. This is when I was at Ingersoll Rand, the CEO at that time, and Ingersoll Rand's a pretty good sized company. He wanted to build more teamwork within his staff. Mm-hmm. And asked me to come in and facilitate some of his staff meetings in order to try to build teamwork. And I remember sitting down with the CEO, the CFO, and the head of human resources. And we were doing the pre-meeting, talking about what do we want to try to accomplish. And I shared with them what I thought would be a good agenda. And it included this introductory block, which includes all the things we've been discussing, including a team building exercise. And the CFO looked at me and he said, John, he said, you need to understand, we're very busy executives running a major corporation that spans the world. We don't have time for this nonsense, this, fun and game stuff. We're too important to do this. So I said, well, that's fine. You can choose to do that if you'd like, but if you don't do these kinds of things, you'll never be a team, and you really don't need me because you're just going to continue down the same path that you're on right now. So I literally started packing up all my stuff, got my bag, and said, hey, it was nice talking to you, and started walking out of the room. And now you got to remember, this was like my boss's boss's boss, Well, the CEO called after me and he was like, no, come back. If you really think we need to do this, we're going to do it. Right. And we did. We did a pretty involved team building exercise. And it was amazing what they were able to accomplish. And also how the dynamics changed almost instantly. It was funny because in this particular activity, it not only involved getting a task done, but then you had to put together a marketing plan and a commercial to sell the product that you created, the teams created. There were 3 different teams. And I remember this like it was yesterday, but like the head of our legal department, she was viewed as, kind of unrelatable. Well, she was part of this commercial, and it actually involved singing a jingle, and people were their minds were blown. They were like, oh my goodness, we've never seen her like this before. And it was just like the way the dynamics changed instantly. And they started relating to this person in a completely new and better way, because they saw her in a completely different light. So I do think that these things are very powerful to do. They do have to be done the right way. They have to be done, in a way that adds value to the conversation, and they can't take up too much time.
Yeah.
But again, you can really change the dynamics within the team, um, by doing these things.
Yeah, on the back end of this, back to behaviors, I think one of the attitudes or attributes that is really critical for the leader of the team or the facilitator, depending on the situation that you're in. And I'll use an example to give it. I was working on a strategy deployment retreat, and for the head of the pathology team. And so it was the head of pathology, all the pathology officers from all the different hospitals were all together, and a lot of other individuals also that oversaw major areas in the pathology labs and pathology and labs. And so we brought them all together. This is a huge group. This was like 25, 30 people. Broke them up, did facilitated the whole thing, and then in the end of day one, it was a 3-day event. On the end of day one, I asked the head of the team to get up and do a plus and delta, where it talks about what went well today, so we could continue more of it, and what was the delta. And the goal of the delta was that the next day we're reflecting today so that we can make the adjustments the next day. And so we're showing as leaders our vulnerability, because that's huge for team dynamics. The team is not going to be vulnerable unless they see their leader vulnerable. And this is, I think, is a missed opportunity for many leaders who have big teams or have teams in general who don't end the meeting on a reflection point. They don't need a survey to find out if they did good or bad. They just need to know right there and then, what could we have done better? And not just lip service, but model high performance as a behavior so that the next day they could see what that looks like. Hey, yesterday we said these are the 5 things we need to improve upon. We adjusted our agenda for the next day to reflect improving these things. How did we do? And kind of hold us accountable that these are the things that we said we should get better. And if an organization has that learning mindset that after every meeting, even if it takes 1 minute, like, how could we get better? How could we get better? How could we get better? The dynamics of the team changes, because it becomes this vulnerable, safe zone where the leader is saying that it's okay to mess up. It's the leader saying, I want feedback. I need to get better. I'm not perfect either. And so it allows this openness for people to say, you know what, they're not viewing these flaws as weaknesses. They're viewing these flaws as opportunities to get better, and I'm going to expose mine. And I think that's huge for team dynamics.
Yeah, and again, just to wrap this up, it just goes to show that with a little pre-planning, a little investment in that upfront introductory block, you can greatly diminish the time that the team goes through storming, which will then result in the team being a lot more productive in the long run. So, the way I kind of put it is if you invest, say, an hour into that introductory block, you'll gain 5, 6, 7 hours of productivity because you're not storming as much, and the team is now coming together, and the team dynamics are a positive instead of a negative. So
yeah. And one more thing before we come to a close. I don't know if you agree with me on this or not. Regardless of the team design, if a group of people are meeting together or a group of people are working together and there's no agenda, or there is an agenda but there's no purpose, or there is purpose but there's no expected takeaway or outcome from this meeting, I would tell you don't have the meeting.
I agree.
Because it's a waste of time of everyone, and it actually could deteriorate the team dynamics by having that kind of platform, because it's been a breeding ground to sabotage and create chaos. And it's easier not to have it until you are formulated first.
And again, what you just described is there's a lack of understanding of why are we here.
Yeah. Yep.
right? That's that's like I said, that's the root cause for a lot of these issues.
Yep.
Why are we here?
Yep.
All right, very good. We'll see you next week.
All right. Great talking to you, John. Take care, everyone.
As we draw the curtains on another fascinating episode, we wanted to express our gratitude for joining us on this enlightening journey. If you're hungry for more captivating and thought-provoking discussions with John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, hit that subscribe button to ensure you don't miss a beat. Until next week, keep exploring, stay inquisitive, and stay inspired. See you on the next Behind the Curtain adventure.